Welcome back to some new PettyRevenge stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Obnoxious Phone Calls. I was on a 4-hour train ride in a small compartment of 6 seats. One guy in a business suit joined me. I was sitting in the window seat facing the direction the train was going. He was sitting in the middle seat in the opposite direction. I watched a movie on my laptop with headphones. He was typing away on his. Then his phone rang. He took the call and started talking as if he was alone in the room. You know, asking how the caller's day is going, taking his sweet time to chat with them. I thought this was rude. But who knows, maybe it's his niece who calls twice a year max. After 10 or so minutes, he hangs up and I can turn off the subtitles. If I had turned up the volume enough to drown out his babbling, I would have probably gotten tinnitus after the day. Sometime later, he gets another phone call. And he literally says, No, it's fine. I have plenty of time. At this point, I start glaring at him. When he notices, he kinda looks uncomfortable, but apparently not uncomfortable enough to leave the carriage or speed up his call. The call ends and I can continue my movie in peace. Until that guy takes out his phone and calls someone. Like, he deliberately decides that I have to listen to one more of his conversations, instead of, I don't know, maybe calling later, or from somewhere else, or maybe texting. While he is waiting for the caller to pick up, I finally speak up. I ask him to take his calls in the corridor, to which he raises his stumpy little finger in order to quiet me down and shakes his head. You know, the exact shushing gestures moms use when they are on the phone and their kid comes up to ask for a cupcake. At that point, I had enough. I had zero desire to invest more energy in him by either confronting him again or hunting down the train conductor. What I did have was an appetite for the chips I had in my bag, originally intended for vegging out on the sofa after arriving home. I opened the bag and started eating those bad boys. I didn't smack my lips or eat with an open mouth, because disgusting, but I did bite into each chip as noisily as I could. The dude started to glare daggers at me. He finished his phone call after a few minutes, and I put the chips away. After some time, he gets a call. He accepts the call. I take out the chips and start eating. He starts glaring daggers. I pretend not to notice. Then, finally, he goes, Wait a minute, I have trouble hearing you, and takes the call to the corridor. The next story is called Laundry Revenge. I used to live in an apartment building with too few laundry rooms. There was a single washer/dryer set per floor, with roughly 10 to 12 units in a 3-story building. On the weekends, when I had free time, I'd do laundry. It seemed like the ground floor laundry was always busy, so I'd carry everything upstairs to the 2nd floor. I set a timer on my watch so I could be back before the load was finished, so others could use the washer quickly. All the washers were top loaders too. One weekend I found my still soaping wet load on the floor, with the final minutes of my cycle counting down. I was irritated and just carried it to another washer. I am conflict avoidant, as I usually overreact. The same thing happened the following weekend, and again after that. I know I should have just hauled my laundry up to the 3rd floor. But that was ridiculous. I found out from neighbors that there was a confrontational woman who had become notorious for doing this. We guessed that she didn't want to pay to do her laundry. She must have thought watching for neighbors starting a load and rushing in to swap her stuff in was a great cost-cutting idea. It happened one final time, and I went white hot. I carried my load back to my apartment and returned with a bottle of bleach. I emptied it into the washer. I barely noticed that it was a colored load. I wasn't close enough to hear it, but according to neighbors, she discovered what happened and went into an expletive-laced rage. She started pounding on doors, screaming at people. The apartment manager was called to deal with her. Very shortly afterward, the woman moved out. The neighbors were glad to see her gone. Nobody knew it was me. I know I ought to have talked to her, but screw it. The 3rd story is called Neighborhood Speedster. Not my family, but someone I know. When they were a child in the late 80s, their family lived on a street that, while residential, was a popular shortcut for other neighborhoods. Most of the people who drove down the street were respectful enough and drove at a reasonable speed. But one man in particular would always drive past the house at 40 to 50 miles per hour, which is twice the speed limit. Finally, my friend's father had had enough. He was a mechanic and had easy access to old tires. He grabbed one and waited until the speeder came roaring down the street and bounced it into the road. If the car had been going at a safe speed, he'd have been able to stop with plenty of time. But of course, he wasn't. His car hit the tire hard and he slammed on the brakes and stopped. He was furious when he saw the dad there, just staring at him with his arms crossed. He got out of his car and started screaming at the dad for throwing the tire in the road. The dad looked him in the eye and said, "That could have been my 4-year-old," and turned and walked away without another word. The man never sped past the house again. The next story is called Music All Night. We lived in a super bad apartment with paper-thin walls and shared a bedroom wall with my neighbor. She was well aware of how thin the walls were, because one time she sneezed and I said, "Bless you," and I heard her laugh. These walls were so thin I could hear her phone vibrate. So one night she's blasting some lame song on repeat for hours, well into the wee hours of the morning. My husband, boyfriend at the time, and I had to work the next morning and obviously couldn't sleep. I knocked on the wall a couple of times, but I guess she couldn't hear me or didn't care, so I started formulating a plan. I charged up my MP3 player and tried to get what little sleep I could. The next morning I put my plan into action. I knew she didn't work and would most definitely be sleeping in. I plugged my MP3 player into my speakers and put them right next to the wall and put a song on repeat. Then my husband and I walked out the door. When I got off work, I had almost forgotten what I'd done until I saw her sitting on her porch. As I walked up, she shot me a dirty look, but I just smiled back and walked inside. The music was still playing. From that point on, she never did that again. Mission accomplished. The last story is called No Promotion. I started working for a company many years ago. I worked hard, did extra work and worked overtime regularly. They were always short-staffed. I worked an average of 3 days as overtime. After a year and a half, I was supposed to get promoted. I met with the manager and he went over the checklist and said I meet all the requirements but wouldn't give me my promotion. He said I worked too much overtime on other shifts. To me, that was a weird statement, as that shouldn't matter. I'm helping the company out. Apparently, the managers from all 3 shifts didn't like each other and hated when one of their workers worked overtime on someone else's shift. I didn't know all this, as I don't get caught up in gossip. This was more of a shock to me, as I came from a company that believed in working as a team and for the best of the company. I worked to help the company and its customers. And also, the extra money was nice. I continued to work as I did, cause I'm not giving up the extra money. What I make in overtime is a lot more than the promotion raise. As my department has a budget given to them, the manager's bonus depends on if they go over it. Part of my benefits include tuition for school, so I enrolled in an online program. I picked a college where they offer our company a discount on their tuition. This helped me take 4 classes a year instead of 3 without going over my max allowance. I started taking classes. Other co-workers noticed I would do schoolwork during downtime. I worked the overnight shift, so there was always downtime. I started to encourage others to go back to school as well. They could even take a certificate program. I told them companies don't care about us and can get rid of us anytime, but can never take away our education. Eventually, around 10 of us were in school, eating into their budget. Managers are panicking, as they know they will go over and their bonuses will be affected. They can't stop us from using our company benefits. And they can stop the overtime as we need adequate staff to do the work. To be even more petty, I wouldn't pick overtime on his shift when he was really short-handed. Others were in classes and wouldn't pick up overtime when it was really short either, and knew it would be a lot of work that day. So his metrics would fall. We had a rule of no forced overtime, so he couldn't make people work overtime on his shift. For the next few years they went over their budget, and my manager had the worst metrics out of the 3 of them. So his bonus was cut the most. It took another year, but I finally got my promotion. He tried to stop it, but I filed a complaint with my director. stating that I qualify for my promotion to the next level as I hit all my qualifications. They reviewed it and agreed. I got my promotion within that month. He would ask me every year if I was planning on using my tuition benefit, to which I said, of course. After 4 years, I finished my program. He seemed relieved until I told him I was planning on doing a second degree. He was mad and tried to stop me. So I had a meeting with HR and asked him to show me where in the policy it states that I can use it for one program only, or a max amount I qualify for. They couldn't, and told my manager I was eligible to use the tuition benefits as much as I like, as long as the school and program meet the company's requirements. I never went over the yearly after finishing my 3rd degree before leaving the company on a volunteer buyout. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.